Watching TV has changed over time. Streaming has become the new norm. That's why Golden State Media Concepts television podcast dives headfirst to the world of cord cutting. Want to be on the loop of what's hot in Netflix? Or if it's not a preference, what about original shows in Hulu? We've got you covered. Join us as we fill in the blank and talk about movies to stream and what show you should be binging. This is the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC TV show podcast brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network Group. I'm your host, Priscilla Welch. It is close to another week again, y'all, and it's coming up close to the holidays as well. So I would like to tell all of you happy Thanksgiving, and I want to break down some new content that is streaming for all of you TV viewers out there, for all of my fellow college students, and for anyone that is still going through a lot with the pandemic. And we all know that we want to be with our families, but unfortunately we can't have too many people, of course, in our houses and everything like that, but we can still stream and watch things, especially like listen to music and stuff like that. So of course I would like to just break this down so that way you can listen to this and find out what shows you can start watching whenever you need some ideas of what to stream for TVs or movies or anything like that. And if you stay tuned to later on in the show, we will talk about Amazon Prime's all new movie called Uncle Frank, which is actually coming out Thanksgiving. But of course I want to start off the show with The Crown. So as some of you may know, The Crown is actually a TV show that has been streaming on Netflix for the longest while now, and it's based of course on the royal family of the UK. And of course they reside in England. So I just want to talk a little bit about that. So stay tuned and we're going to have an amazing show. As some of you may know, so right now The Crown is actually on season 4. And it's actually been trending like crazy because right now on this season, they're finally caught up to the point where Princess Diana marries Prince Charles. And of course, they start having their 2 sons and stuff like that. And a lot of different things have been going on in the past week, where they even reopened a private investigation about what really happened with the interviews that Princess Diana had with a certain reporter in regards to leaking out certain things about her marriage to Prince Charles and how she really felt. Because as we all know, Princess Diana was literally a legend, is a legend, and an icon of her time, and she really just wanted to do better than what was typical for the entire like royal family. But of course, she got killed in that process. As you all know, the way she was killed, she actually died in a car crash August 31st, 1997. And of course, it was a tragedy because Princess Diana was loved by all. And that's kind of what made a lot of the people who were after her kind of jealous of that. But anyway, not to go into much depressing mode about the Princess Diana story. However, of course, if you wanted to watch a documentary, you can. I believe they have a couple of them on Hulu and Netflix. But The Crown right now has 4 seasons in total. Again, it started November 4th, 2016. The production companies are Left Bank Pictures and Sony Pictures Television. And as we know, it actually forecasts and showcases the royal family that's current right now because, of course, the Elizabeth II, she is actually still alive. She's about 94 years old now. As you all know, she actually outlived her parents. She outlived her sister, Princess Margaret. She outlived her husband, Prince Philip. And right now, even like her children are, some of them, like, they're still alive. But yeah, the show literally goes in detail, especially about very significant events that happened during her reign. And as we all know, she's been reigning for a very, very long time. She's not going anywhere. And again, you can watch this and stream this on Netflix. So I thought this would be a good idea for you to catch up on because it's trending right now, where a lot of people who probably were not viewers before to watch The Crown will probably be now because they want to see Princess Diana portrayed and a little bit of her story told again through this TV show. So I'm really glad they finally caught up to that part. And of course, if you notice, if you start watching the show from the beginning, it starts literally from when she actually marries Prince Philip, Queen Elizabeth. And it also shows like little flashbacks too of like when she was a child, and of Princess Margaret, of her parents. So it goes like way far back like that. And they do the same thing also for Prince Philip. Like Prince Philip, for example, his family is actually German, and he was German, and they actually have a Nazi background. So, of course, for those of you who don't really know like the history too well, you would actually find this out watching The Crown. And then, of course, you could do your own little research and your own little details and everything, because, of course, every TV show is not going to have every historical event accurate. And what I do personally is, as I'm watching the show, I would actually look up the different facts that actually happened, because they can compare whenever they do TV shows like this of historical events of like what did the show The Crown actually get accurate and what did it got inaccurate. So that's pretty cool to compare. I actually just binge watched for a couple of days from season 2, because that's where I actually left off. So it was when Queen Elizabeth, of course, was still kind of young. She wasn't really middle-aged yet, but she was about to be middle-aged. And then, of course, it transitioned into a different actress. So, of course, they started changing up who Prince Philip played as well. And then it transitions, when they do finally season 5 and season 6, it will transition into an older version of the Queen. So that way they can showcase what happens, you know, like in the 2000s, like after Princess Diana dies and stuff like that. So I think it's pretty cool how they've been doing it so far. And again, you can stream this on Netflix, and I will talk about the cast list now. And I also want to specifically talk about what happened between Thatcher and Queen Elizabeth, because Thatcher was the prime minister during a certain point in time. And that also is trending right now on the show. So a lot of people are trying to look at what happened. Did they have a falling out? Did they even get along? Another cool thing, especially too, about the ending of like, I think it was like season 3, or it was like beginning of season 3, is when the Kennedys actually came to, I think it was like ending of season 2 actually. So we saw the transition of basically when JFK was assassinated, when JFK actually visited the Buckingham Palace and met the Queen and Prince Philip. And we saw the relationship as well between Queen Elizabeth II as well as Jackie Kennedy. And Jackie Kennedy was like an icon in her time for her fashion. She was an author. She was a socialite. So it's a lot of different things to play here. And what was pretty cool was to see the art come to life, was what I like about this show, because I love English history. You may remember one of my previous episodes that I actually talk about the York and like the Tudor family. And Queen Elizabeth II, she actually does come from that bloodline. So that's pretty cool to keep track of, like how that bloodline still stays afloat. And of course, things always change, right? There's always some type of transition. And what I think is cool is, you know, regardless of whatever decade it is, Queen Elizabeth II has a way of still keeping the monarch as a certain reputation, especially with all the scandalous things that have happened between the royal family and anyone outside the royal family or is married into the royal family. One character I really feel bad for is actually Princess Margaret. Of course, she has now passed away a few years ago, but it's interesting how she was always kind of like second, and she's the one that really wanted to be queen, and not even Queen Elizabeth II herself. So that was always interesting, and to see that portrayed on the show, how it's kind of like almost like a sister rivalry going on, like because she's second, she had to do everything second, even have kids, even get married, because you cannot upstage the crown no matter what you do. And of course, different people have history of doing that. Even the latest Duchess that's actually married to one of her grandchildren, because of course they're doing the transition again, because it's a new generation, it's a new decade that we're in. So a little bit about the cast. So for the first 2 seasons when the show first started, of course, Queen Elizabeth II was being played by Claire Foy, and she sometimes gets featured a little bit in season 4, as you probably will be watching soon. And then we have Olivia Colman. She plays Queen Elizabeth right now as we speak. She started in season 3, because now that's when the transition occurs, and she has the older version of Queen Elizabeth. Then we have Matt Smith and Tobias Menzies. So Matt Smith, he played the young version, of course, to Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, and that's, of course, you know, the same one that had the same German background, Queen Elizabeth II's husband that died. And then Currently, right now, we have Tobias Menzies, who plays like the older version to him. Then we have Vanessa Kirby. She was playing Princess Margaret, the younger version, for seasons 1 to 2. And now, of course, we have like, she's literally one of my favorite actresses. We have Helena Bonham Carter. You may know her also for playing like Bellatrix Lestrange in Harry Potter, for example. But she currently plays Princess Margaret for season 3 and season 4. And then we have Eileen Atkins as Queen Mary, and she was basically throughout all of like season 1. Then we have Jeremy Northam as Anthony Eden. Then we have Victoria Hamilton as Marion Bailey, and we also have, she's actually for seasons 3 to 4, and she is actually the Queen Mother. Sorry, she's the Queen Mother, Victoria Hamilton, and Marion Bailey is the one that currently does it, season 1 to season 2. Then we have Ben Miles as the group captain, and he plays Peter Townsend. He was actually in season 1 and season 2. We have Greg Wise, season 1 and season 2. He played Charles Dance. Season 3 and season 4 is as Louis Earl Mountbatten of Burma. Then we have Jared Harris as King George VI, and he was season 1, season 2. And Winston Churchill, we actually are up to in season 3 when actually he just passed away. And he actually is played by John Lithgow. Alex Jennings, he played he played Prince Edward, Duke of Windsor. And then Derek Jacobi actually did a little bit of him in season 3. We have Leah Williams. She plays Wallis, Duchess of Windsor. And as of right now for season 3, Geraldine Chaplin took her place. Then we have Anton Lesser as Harold Macmillan in season 2. Matthew Good, and he played Anthony Armstrong Jones, Earl of Snowdon, and of course it was replaced by Ben Daniels in season 3. For Princess Anne for season 3 and 4, because Princess Anne, of course, is going to start getting older too, as one is Queen Elizabeth's children, and she is played by Erin Doherty. Now, they don't really mention like the kids too much that actually played the younger versions of them. And then we have Josh O'Connor as Charles, Prince of Wales from season 3 to season 4. Who else? We also have Emma Corrin in season 4. She's currently playing Diana, Princess of Wales. And then Gillian Anderson as Margaret Thatcher. And Stephen Boxer as Dennis Thatcher, her husband. So those are pretty much the important people that we have right now for the cast from season 1 to season 4. What's interesting is when the show first started out for seasons 1 to 2, so actually Claire Foy, she was actually getting paid less than Matt Smith when they first started the show, which I find really weird. I feel like they both should have at least got it paid equal, and maybe at least like because she was playing Queen Elizabeth II. Remember, it's called The Crown. And a lot of people forget that even though her husband is a man, he was actually under her. So he will never be pronounced king because of the fact that he came from a different country, came from a different background, and he had to basically like sever all ties that he was German and basically like announce that he was a prince of the British nation. So it's very interesting how, you know, there's all these different like rules and like regulations and responsibilities that you have to upkeep. And of course, before she's his wife, she is actually the queen. So she has power over him as well and can demand him to do whatever, if you really think about it that way. But they try their best to kind of keep the equality in their marriage and kind of the equality as well. But like, for example, she would always like walk ahead of him. He's not allowed to like walk ahead or even walk next to, he kind of has to like tag along and walk behind, even though that's her husband. It's pretty cool to see all that come to life on this beautiful TV show, and it gives you a lot of insight to like what really happened, and you know, when things were going on in America or if things were going on in Africa, specifically like Ghana, for example, there was or even Russia, you know, you got to see what the Queen was doing, and you got to see their side of the story of what Britain was doing when all these different events were happening in history, of course, that we all heard of before, you know, assassination of Kennedy, you know, what happened with Jackie Kennedy, you know, right after he was assassinated when he got shot. And there was like one scene in the TV show that I want to talk about real quick, and we move on to the next one, that she was still wearing his, the same like clothes that actually purposely had John F. Kennedy's like blood all over it. And it was almost as if like not only a fashion statement, but also a statement to who shot him in the first place, and basically to show like how much she stood for what he did, regardless of everything that happened in their marriage or the fact that like he just was killed. So she's kind of in utter shock. And another significant thing is when there was like an alliance that had to be made between Ghana and Britain, because at that point Africa wanted to move away from being treated as subordinates but more like equals, and how they kind of were making deals with the Soviet Union in the past, and how the Queen kind of had to like step in to make sure that didn't continue happening, especially in order to keep on good terms with America as well. Because of course at that point, because of the Soviet Union and because of the Iron Curtain, they were still kind of like at a dangerous risk with Russia. It was kind of like, a war going on. So yeah, that's a little bit about The Crown. And again, if you want to look up like the historical events that happened and get out like accurate facts, I would highly recommend that you do your research as you're watching the TV show, because not everything will be accurate on the show itself. And one thing I do like to point out though too is if you're into this type of things with royals and TV shows and stuff like that, like this, then yes, you can watch it on Netflix. And there's many other shows like this too. Like they even have another one on PBS called Queen Victoria, which I'll probably talk about on a different podcast, different episode. And the actual Queen Elizabeth II, she actually is a big fan of the TV show. I actually did my research on that, so I thought that was pretty cool, because I can only imagine like how you could see yourself. This is kind of like your biography, basically. All the things that she's done in the past and things that happened to her in the past come to life. However, I do know like her son Prince Charles is not a fan of seeing his wife being portrayed, Princess Diana, on the show so far for season 4. And I do know her one son, the first son, Prince William, he kind of doesn't want to see what happened as he was growing up as a child in the kingdom when on the show The Crown. So it's kind of like mixed feelings among the royal family for this show. So anyway, stay tuned. So coming up after the break, we're going to discuss another actually movie that you can actually stream also on Netflix for the holidays. So even if you don't do it for Thanksgiving, probably Christmas, but it's a beautiful movie and I can't wait to talk to you guys about it. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned.
Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. Keith keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further, because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
All right, welcome back to the break, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today to the GSMC television podcast. Again, I'm your host, Priscilla Welch, and we just finished discussing before the break about The Crown, because of course that is like literally number one in on Netflix right now for streaming. So I'm kind of talking a little bit about some of the top 10 shows and movies that you can actually stream for the holidays. If you don't want to do it for Thanksgiving, well, just if you want something to watch. And as you all know, again, you can watch that on Netflix, all 4 seasons as we speak. Now, as for Jingle Jangle, so this is a movie that actually stars Forrest Whitaker, Felicia Rashad, and a few others as well. And the show is actually about a magical type of toy maker who actually kind of like loses hope and loses his touch, because back then when he was still all about the toys and everything, and he had his own shop when he was young. And what had happened was he actually lost out on it because this one invention that he had, it was kind of stolen from like his apprentice. His apprentice used to not get like a lot of recognition whenever people used to come and like visit the store. And I guess he kind of got jealous of like the owner and of course the natural toy maker. So when that was taken for him, it's like the shop kind of went downhill from there because all the magic was gone. And so when this happened, it was not until when he got older and his granddaughter had to kind of bring back that hope and bring back that life into him to show him where the magic is, and to actually get back that same device that was stolen from him from his successor, from his apprentice all those years ago. And I find it very interesting because a lot of people are basically calling this film, well, first of all, it's a lot of holiday cheer in it, a lot of like Christmas. I mean, it's called Jingle Jangle. And of course, it's a fabulous musical number, and they're calling it basically The Greatest Showman meets the Cats for 2020. So it's definitely something to cheer people up and to bring the holiday season in your homes finally. And again, you can watch this on Netflix. It's actually streaming as, I think, number 2 or number 3 right now for Netflix and in general. And I'm not sure if that's just the US or internationally, but I do know it's like the talk of the town right now, especially because of the original music. Of course, we have artists like John Legend, who is actually behind on that. And again, so I'm just going to read something from the slate.com. And personally, you know, as a black woman, I like how we're kind of getting like more and more into this idea of diversity. And like the cast is literally, you know, multicultural and diverse. And that's what we want to see more. We want to see more color, okay? And the costume in this movie is like ridiculous. Like the colors are just amazing. It's kind of like a Victorian era type of film, but it's not dull. You know, like it's a lot of bright reds and blues and yellows and plaids, and the lighting itself, you know, just in the film is beyond creative. And again, it's like something perfect for like you and your loved ones to watch, especially if you have kids. They'll definitely enjoy this film because they have kids in the movie that they can like relate to, but at the same time sing along with. And who doesn't like something with a little bit of magic? And I think that's what we definitely need in 2020, which is why this film is great to watch. And of course, if you already have a Netflix subscription, hell yeah, you can watch this. So again, so in the year where Radio City is shuttered by the pandemic, of course. So this is kind of how like the article starts out. And again, this is not my words. This is from the slate.com. So Netflix's Jingle Jangle, A Christmas Journey, that's the title, is the closest thing we have to a big Christmas spectacular. It's a cross between The Greatest Showman and Cats, bundled in shiny Christmas wrapping paper, none other than John Legend as one of the minds behind the many songs packed into its 2 hours. At the center of that festive mismatch is an inventor named Geronicus Jangle, a sentient doll and a robot that, like Tinkerbell, is powered by belief. So we all know, like when it comes to Christmas time, when it comes to the holidays, especially like after Halloween, there's always some type of joke about how a lot of us would skip over Thanksgiving and already start our Christmas decorations because we're already in November, and why not? And who doesn't like a mix of like anything has a Disney idea behind it, but at the same time, it's not too childish. You can kind of relate to, even if you're an adult, you know, you still need people, you still need support, you still need people to believe in you. And you need to believe in yourself in order to chase your dreams and follow them. But at the same time, you know, be realistic. So this movie is literally all about believing and beliefs. So however, unlike Cats, they further continue, is David E. Talbert's movie is a coherent, compelling story that doesn't require booze or any other form of pre-gaming to be fully enjoyed. It's the filmic equivalent of the high that comes from eating away too many candy canes and drinking away too much hot chocolate. So again, like I said, this is the perfect movie for you and your family to bond and cozy up together on the couch. So Forrest Whitaker, like I told you before, stars as Geronicus. He's a toy maker whose creativity and joie de vivre have waned in the years since the matador doll Don Juan Diego, which is played by Ricky Martin. And he was actually, like I said, Geronicus' creation, capable of walking, talking, and thinking for himself, convinced his apprentice Gustafon, which is played by Keegan Michael Key, who is the comedian, to steal Geronicus' designs and pass them off as his own. So while he now known as the Magic Man G, that's what he later called himself, the apprentice. And he presides over a sprawling toy factory with Don Juan Diego as the devil on his shoulder. Geronicus tinkers away, doing small repairs for the local townspeople, unable to create anything new, all the while rebuffing the advances of the very... So this is the key word that they say in here, and I don't really want to mention it, but it's a very single male lady named Lisa Davina Phillip, whose amorous intentions are declared with the help of a dancing chorus. Geronica's depression, compounded by the death of his wife, has alienated his daughter, Anika Nani Rose, and made him a bit of a Scrooge. So, however, when his granddaughter, Journey, she's like a would-be inventor herself, she comes to visit, and then the magic starts to seep slowly back into his life. So that kind of like relifted his spirits. And then we further continued that the unfolding tales involve math equations floating in the air as a visual representation, a creative spark, with concepts like sensational and impossible serving as variables, and each major scene centering on a catchy musical number. And Michael Distinct are behind the songs, as well as, like I said, John Legend, we have Philip Lawrence, we have Davey Nathan. And despite having ridiculously named characters, I thought the characters were kind of cool though, just saying. We have like the costume sets that seem to have been created by raiding every Christmas village in existence, and a plot that could have been conceived on the aforementioned Sugar High. The movie's relative simple story and the strength of its acting help keep it grounded and a little less zany than it might seem on the surface. In that respect, Jingle Jangle is closer to The Greatest Showman, the problematic hero, and with less fast sell messaging than Cats. It actually has a plot enough that it's easy to imagine Jingle Jangle being reworked for the stage, especially as Mills Bell's Journey I Want a Song, Square Root of Possible, which is a standout in Jingle Jangle's stacked soundtrack. So yeah, like honestly, this film is literally like going to Broadway because of, like I said, the creativity, the colors in this film. So I actually watched like the first like 5 to 7 minutes of the film, and it started off with everyone kind of talking about the toy maker's store and the amount of kids and parents that were in there, you know, just trying to find something new. And when the big guy came out, of course, Geronicus, again, like as a young man, you know, it's like he's in his prime. He's like, you know, I got this. Like, I'll make you a toy. I'll make you a toy. And, you know, the part that I caught up to is when he actually gets the package that means a lot to him. And those are these, like, one of the main inventions of, you know, what kind of gets, like, stolen, like, I believe later on in the movie, or, like, one of the ideas or designs. But I'm not too sure, because I didn't watch, like, the film thing. But like I said, you can stream this on Netflix as we speak for the holiday season. But then there was a scene, I remember, like, if you've seen the trailer, where he has, like, this one last invention that he said that his enemies did not get a hold of, and it might be actually that package that he got from the beginning of the movie. So I have to still like watch it, but definitely go out there and watch it. I highly recommend it. It's literally the perfect movie to watch, especially for Thanksgiving Day. If you don't want to wait till Thanksgiving Day, you know, you can wait a little longer. If you want to watch for Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, it's perfect. I definitely love the singing and the dancing. Again, it reminds me of Broadway so much. But I definitely think this is a film that you can watch over and over again. But me personally, I rather wait till when it's like closer to like the day of the holiday to actually watch it. Just because you could be like, well, this is like what I did for the holidays, and this is a holiday movie, especially because of the pandemic and how everything is just getting worse and worse. So, yeah, that's a little bit about Jingle Jangle, okay? And I told you a little bit about the plot and the cast and where to watch. So, coming up after the break, we're going to get into another holiday movie that you can watch, and it's called The Peanuts Movie. And I'm going to let you all know where you can go ahead and stream that film as well, okay? We did talk a little bit about it on a different episode as to why it was being moved from national networks, but I definitely want to go in a little deeper and where you can actually watch it this time around. So don't go anywhere. Coming up after the break, you don't want to miss it.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back from the break, everyone. So, as you all know, we just finished discussing the Jingle Jangle movie, and again, you could go ahead and watch that on Netflix as we speak. It is a wonderful movie. I still have to continue watching myself, but I did watch the first 5 minutes of it. A lot of colors, a lot of singing, a lot of dancing, so just be prepared for that. So coming up next, I want to talk about the Peanuts movie and actually where you can go ahead and stream that easy peasy, especially because Thanksgiving is right around the corner, and I thought this would be a good movie that you can actually stream on your television. So a little bit about the Peanuts movie. Again, you can actually stream it on Disney Plus. I highly recommend to watch it there because Disney Plus also gives you the option if you wanted to watch certain movies on there, like in HDR. And so you can watch it on Disney Plus. You can watch it on Hulu. But with Hulu, now sometimes it depends on what it is that you're watching on Hulu, but you do need a premium subscription if you're going to watch it on there. And you can watch it also on YouTube TV as long as you have a subscription. Sling TV, Vudu, Amazon Prime, Google Play, and YouTube. But like I said, the highly recommendation to watch it on would be Disney Plus, especially if you already have a subscription, and Hulu. And this Peanuts movie is actually a little different to what you usually would see on the cable network TV. So before the break, I did talk about one of my previous episodes that I did where some of the Peanuts holiday movies, the Charlie Brown, they actually were moved off of cable television. A lot of people have a lot of controversial ideas about that because they feel like it brings the nation together, especially everything that has happened this year. It's just been traumatizing. And so, but the Peanuts movie was actually, I forgot when exactly it was brought out, but I'll get to that in a little bit. But I seen it on Disney Plus for a good, probably the beginning of fall, end of summer. So it's been out for a little while. It's different because it's a different type of animation as well. They kind of remade it in Disney. So again, I want to talk a little bit about that, and that's why I highly recommend that you should watch it on that app to stream on your lovely televisions, because that's where I first saw it before any of the other apps that were streaming it. So a little bit about the Peanuts movie, okay? So in some countries, you may have heard of this, but it actually is really titled Snoopy and Charlie Brown, a Peanuts movie, but we call it just the Peanuts movie over here. And it actually came out in 2015, and it's a different, like I said, a different type of animation. So it's more computer animated comedy film. And it's based on Charles' comic strip of the Peanuts, produced by Blue Sky Studios, and it was distributed by 20th Century Fox. And it has a fifth full-length Peanuts film in the first 35 years when this film actually came out. So if you have not seen this film yet, this is definitely a film that you could go ahead and stream with your loved ones and watch. And of course, we have the same characters throughout the film. So a little bit about the producers. It actually, again, was produced by Craig Scholes, Brian Scholes, Cornelius Uliano, Paul Feig, and Michael J. Travers. The screenplay was, of course, by the Scholes again, Craig and Brian, and Cornelius Uliano, and it's based on Peanuts by Charles. And it actually is starring Noah Schnapp, Hadley Bell Miller, Marielle Sheets, Alex Garfin, Francesca Angelucci Capaldi, Troy, in other words, and I quote, Trombone Shorty, Andrews, and then Kristen Chenoweth, and Bill Melendez. And the music is by Christoph Beck, cinematography Renato, and then we have edited by Randy Traeger. Production companies are Blue Sky Studios and 20th Century Fox Animation. And the release date was November 1st, 2015. It was actually a New York City premiere. And for this, it was November 6th, 2015 in the United States. And then the running time is only about 88 minutes. And the budget alone for this movie was $99 million, but for the box office, it won $246.2 million. So the development for this movie was actually back in 2006. It was 6 years after the death of Charles Scholes and the final release of the last Peanuts comic strip. And Charles Scholes, the son of Charles, pitched a film idea to his son Brian Scholes, and then it presented the film idea to have this one. And I quote, Brian actually stated that he had full creative control on the film so that the quality will remain under Charles' legacy. And 20th Century and Blue Sky Studios announced development of a computer animated film in October 2012. So then we have, of course, Steve Martino directing, due to his faithfulness in the film Horton Hears a Who, which was also produced by the same production company, Blue Sky. So that was pretty interesting, a little background on that. And there was a lot of elements throughout the entire comic strip. such as like, you know, Charlie Brown's skating pond, the house, the wall, Lucy's psychiatrist booth, as well as Snoopy and Woodstock voice tracks from Bill Melendez. So a little bit about the plot. So it's when a little red-haired girl moves into this neighborhood, of course, Charlie Brown's neighborhood, and he becomes like in love with her. But in the long run, he worries like his long running streak with failures will prevent him from noticing him. So he's trying to get her attention so bad throughout this entire film. And then, of course, little Lucy tells him he should try to be more confident, and Charlie Brown decides to embark upon a series of new activities in hope of finding one that would get, you know, the red-headed girl to like finally like him or even just notice him. And then throughout the film, like, he does all these different attempts. So one of his attempts was like to participate in the school's talent show with the magic act, which was held by Snoopy and Woodstock. And then, however, when Sally's act goes wrong, Charlie Brown drops his act and saves his sister from humiliation, which is so sweet. And then, of course, attempting to impress the same little redhead girl with his dance skills, he also tries to sign up for the school dance. And Snoopy, of course, is so cute trying to teach him that. And then Charlie Brown actually gets praised for like his skills, but of course he messes up again, and he actually like, you know, messes up with the sprinkler system and slips, and the dance, of course, was not finished. Then finally, he partners with the same little redhead girl he's trying to get, you know, the attention to for a book report. So he's excited, and he says, okay, well, he finally has a chance as the film goes, but then she has to be called away because there's like a situation that happens with her family. So I don't want to tell you too much about the film, but it's really cute. It's funny because Charlie Brown actually does a book report on War and Peace. And yeah, so as the film goes on, it's a lot of like different like plots and everything like that. So it's really interesting, again, to see this come to life. And to me, this movie kind of showcases too that, you know, Charlie Brown's no longer like little anymore. You know, he's a little older, and I think it's cute because Charlie Brown always has like these like life lessons in their films. So I'm glad, especially because Charles Schulz has died, they're able to still keep up with that same legacy throughout the film. So again, you can watch this on Disney Plus. Again, you can stream it there, and as well as Hulu. Those are like the only two I would really, really recommend for you to watch it. And I honestly, like, I agree with like everyone, especially like in this past episode that we did with the Charlie Brown, and how it would always come out every year, especially around the holidays and everything like that. But things are changing, you know, and at least like we can watch the Peanuts movie and still get like that Charlie Brown feel, especially with all the cast and everything that has been on our television for so many years, to watch it now through, you know, a lot of streaming apps that have become very, very popular. I'm surprised actually Netflix didn't take this on. Netflix wants to take on everything and doesn't try to leave any room for anybody else, especially because since a lot of Disney films and TV shows have moved away from Netflix, so they lost a lot of money on that. And of course they recovered by making a lot of different original films, and the things that they still have on there, like bringing back a lot of old like Black TV sitcoms, or just any like film or TV show that doesn't belong yet with Disney or doesn't belong with Hulu, YouTube, and etc. And going back to the air date, like I said, it did air back in 2015. However, when it first got on Disney Plus, it was actually August 7, 2020. I was able to get the date for you all, which, like I said earlier, I think it was like, you know, around the ending of summer, you know, beginning of like fall. So it hasn't been out on Disney Plus that long, but I do know like this is definitely a film or just a program that's going to be streaming a lot on television because of the holidays, and it's kind of relatable to that because of its life lessons. So it's not specifically the one that we watch like every year on television where they have a Charlie Brown Thanksgiving and they're actually sitting around the table with all the different like junk food and everything of the different things that they ate for Thanksgiving, because it doesn't matter what's on the table, but what matters is who's sitting at the table. And that's kind of like the life lesson, like when you watch that particular one. But with this one, again, it's literally about family. It's literally about growing up, coming of age, and you can still be thankful for that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. So coming up after the break, I want to get into our final thing that we're going to talk about today, and it is actually a new film for Amazon Prime, and it's specifically coming out on Thanksgiving Day. So if you listen to this before that or after that, well, this is when it comes out. And again, it's called Uncle Frank. And we have a couple of like, you know, actors and actresses that actually did a couple of different things in the past before they actually landed this role. So I want to talk about that particular actress. We'll get to that soon. So don't go anywhere. Coming up after the break.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now, don't bother, what's hot on Netflix, and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back from the break, everyone. We're now coming to a close for tonight's episode. But again, thank you so much for listening to us. And again, happy Thanksgiving. So I want to talk about the new film on Amazon Prime that's actually coming out on Thanksgiving Day, and it's called Uncle Frank. And I feel like this is a movie that everyone must see, and it's very important. And I'll get into a little details soon. But if you're now tuning in, we just finished discussing the Peanuts movie and where you can watch it. Again, I highly recommend that you watch it on Disney Plus, and it is the 2015 version, so it's not the same one that I talked about in the previous podcast about like the Charlie Brown holiday specials that usually come out on cable network. A lot of people are still trying to figure out what's the best way to actually watch those, since they completely took it off of, regular TV to stream. So anyway, we're going to start talking about this one actress, and she's in this new film, Uncle Frank, and her name is Sophia Lillis. I remember me talking about her a little bit in a previous episode in the new Netflix drama called I Am Not Okay With This, and she's actually the lead. Of course, it's about the female who gains powers, and she's usually not one of like the popular ones at school. She seems to actually be in love with her best friend. Yeah, so I'm starting to become a big fan of her because I'm starting to follow her career now, and she's starting to come up in like a lot more other TV shows, and now of course like films. She also did It in 2017, and again It Chapter 2 in 2019, and she actually plays Beverly Marsh. And like I said, she also does I Am Not Okay With This. She started that in 2020. And she also appeared in HBO psychological thriller miniseries called Sharp Objects in 2018. And she also played a detective in the film Nancy Drew and the Hidden Staircase in 2019. That was her. So now she's in this film with Paul Bettany. And this film was actually written and directed by Alan Ball. So the film was actually set, first of all, in the 1970s. So this is cool because it's a completely different decade. And Uncle Frank is literally like a road trip type of movie. And it's actually about a gay man who confronts his past. So I find that this will be very interesting because for once we don't have a film that, like I was talking about earlier in the show, for example, Jingle Jangle. Jingle Jangle is kind of not really a typical film, but it is definitely about joy, Christmas, and family, and has a lot of colors and musicals. Whereas Uncle Frank now is one of those movies where it's kind of like where society is choosing to watch maybe something like this because of the plot summary for Thanksgiving. And it shouldn't matter. Obviously, it's nothing really about like Christmas or anything like that, or maybe in relations to Thanksgiving, but maybe in the film, the three actors that we have here, they kind of form some type of family, however, and that will still bring the idea of what to be thankful for. So the actual plot of the story, just going to read a little bit to you. So actually in 1973, when Frank Blesdo and his 18-year-old niece Beth take a road trip from Manhattan to Creekville, South Carolina for the family patriarch's funeral, they are unexpectedly joined by Frank's lover, Walid. So that's pretty cool, especially because we kind of see both sides to it of, who his lover is. They're on their way for some family time and everything like that. So it'll be an interesting, I think, conversation on the road. And again, to talk about the cast, again, we have Paul Bettany as Frank Blesdo. We have Cole Doman as young Frank. And you see that throughout the flashbacks in the film. It might be something that tragic happened to him, like when he found out he was gay and how he had to tell other loved ones. Maybe they didn't accept it right away. There's so many different things that can go on in this film. Of course, like I said, we cannot see it yet until Thanksgiving Day. Then again, like I mentioned before, we have Sophia Lillis as Beth. We have Peter Macdissy as Wally. That's his nickname, Walid Nadim. We have Steve Zahn as Mike Blesdo. We have Judy Greer as Kitty Blesdo. So some of the other family members that probably will pop up in the film. We have Margot Martindale as Mama Blesdo. We have Stephen Root as Daddy Mac. And we have Lois Smith as Aunt Butch. Jane McNeil as Neva. Katie Brewer as Marsha. And Michael Perez as Sam Lassetier. And again, the release date, it had actually a world premiere. So it's actually a Sundance film. And it was actually premiered January 25th, 2020. And then shortly after, of course, Amazon Studios, they actually bought the rights to the film. So now it's scheduled to release on their streaming network for November 25th, 2020. So the film actually was screened at the 2020 Deauville American Film Festival, where it won the public prize. It actually got a good review on Rotten Tomatoes as well. It actually holds 82% rating based on some of the top 17 reviews, and it has to average like 6.4 out of 10 on Rotten Tomatoes, so not too bad. They didn't really like violate this film like how they do so many others, especially if it's like a Sundance film. And the total running time for the film is about 95 minutes. You can watch it, of course, in English. The production company is Miramax, Your Face Goes Here Entertainment, Biblos Entertainment, Coda Films, and Parts and Labor. The cinematography is by Khalid Mohotsteb, and then we have music by Nathan Barr. And the producers are actually Bill Block, Michael Costigan, Jay Van Hoy, Stephanie Murrah, and Peter Macdissy, and Alan Ball again. I think it's cool when you can actually direct your project, and also like you can write and direct about your project. A lot of people cannot do that. So yeah, this is for anyone, if you ever are in a situation, even Thanksgiving, where, you haven't told yourself the truth or told your family the truth because of what they think is shameful or sinful, like maybe this will be a perfect film to inspire you to do so, like for those of you who are like visiting home and everything. Of course, this is like sensitive subject sometimes. Some people, have very mixed feelings about it, and some people have very mixed feelings about it. And I think it's very important to have more and more conversations about this. Like I remember seeing actually a lot of social media videos and memes of people, like there's always like a separation, right, when it comes to like having your Thanksgiving meal, and how a lot of people might feel like really like different when it comes to like, it's just what I'm basically saying is you cannot have certain conversations at a Thanksgiving table. I would advise stay away from politics, stay away from religion, and a lot of times it seems like you have to stay away from what your sexual orientation is, which is kind of sad, but, people these days are not mature enough, even within your own family, to have certain conversations. It's either you're getting judged, it's either if you have to eventually switch the subject because it might offend someone. Like, there's so many different scenarios that could go along with it. And I think this is a film that society needs to watch, your family needs to watch together, your friends need to watch together, especially if they think one-minded and they think a certain way. So I think this film is perfect. So again, like you can watch this, for Thanksgiving, you can watch this for Christmas, anytime like the week after, because of course we still have like Black Friday and then we have the weekend as well. And I know a lot of you out there are probably going to start like going towards like vacation mode, even like starting this weekend, because it overlaps into the following week for Thanksgiving. And then it kind of, like a lot of people, like I know for me, like for my classes, like I'm not having a lot of classes because people are either going to be leaving early or they just don't feel like teaching, a few days before Thanksgiving and a few days before Black Friday. So that's interesting. Again, you can stream this on Amazon Prime, and I'm going to see if there's also another place for you to stream this. So if you actually watch the trailer to this film, it's actually very heartbreaking. So as I stated before, a little bit about the plot, where the character who is Frank, he has his niece, the 18-year-old. However, when I watched the trailer, it did say that she was 14 and not 18. So I think that is a little bit of a miscommunication to the description of the film. And basically, Mac Daddy, who is the pop of the entire family, he actually passes away. And it seems like he actually knew about her uncle, which is Uncle Frank. It seemed like he knew that he was gay from since young, because he actually caught him with another young man when he was like a teenager. And a lot of people in the family don't know about that, but he always treated Uncle Frank very poorly, very horrible. They actually went together for a little like birthday party or whatever for him, and everyone was just like, oh, you know it's from Frank because look how nice it's wrapped. And that's kind of like another stereotype, right? Like when it comes to being gay, and especially in the 70s, because it's kind of like, I guess they want to say female-like, girly-like, because of the fact that it's coming from a man and it's wrapped nicely. So, of course, now he has to come to terms where, you know, people have to know the truth about him, that the fact that he's gay. And his niece actually comes to visit him, you know, as a surprise. And he tells her, like, hey, you know, it's all about you being who you want to be. And that is really the entire, like, important part of the story. And he has to kind of learn also not to be ashamed of being gay, even though he was told so many times, like, because of who he is, people are ashamed of him, so he doesn't really address about it in public. He doesn't talk about it with his family, doesn't talk about his friends. He didn't want his niece to know either. And, you know, it's a bond between the niece and the uncle, and how he, like I said, he tells her, like, you be who you want to be. If you want to change your name, change your name. So I thought that was, like, a really cute scene. And it has, like, a whole nother meaning when it comes to Thanksgiving and family, because, of course, everyone's like, well, if your family thinks of a certain way like this, do you have to follow your old, like, family's tradition and values? Which is fine. But at the same time, are they really your family if they do not accept you for who you are? And that's something, like, a lot of people have to think about, because I feel like a lot of you out there who are listening or may not listen, but there are those of us out there who will not be able to spend time with our families or anyone at all on Thanksgiving Day. There would be no one that would, you know, feel like that same appreciation and have a loved one with them. You know, maybe you might have actually a Friendsgiving because you either live with some roommates or like your family's far away, or there's a situation with your family where you really don't spend the holidays at all. So there's always those situations. And I think this film is a really important film to watch. Like I said, I watched the trailer. I cannot wait to see the film. The acting is incredible. And it's not just about being gay. It's about the fact that, again, you have to accept who you are, how you do things in society. There's also like another scene in the trailer where they're actually trying to get a hotel, and it's kind of hard to explain, you know, what these two men are doing with, you know, his niece. And it's like the lady was just like, what are the relationship between you two? And they kind of have to come up with some type of like lie of like, they're really lovers, they're really in a relationship, they're really partners, they've been living together for like, 10 years now. But of course, you tell them something like that, it's looked down upon. And gay men have always been blamed, especially for, you know, the disease of HIV. So that's another thing that kind of comes into play as well. Another thing you have to think about when it comes to these stereotypes and when it comes to watching this film. And it's almost as if he's like ashamed of who he is. So there's another scene where, when, like I said, when they find out like the father died, and like after the funeral, and a lot of family members is just, when they find out from the niece that he's possibly gay, they're like, oh, well, that just seems wrong and more wrong. And then there's like another scene where, you know, the niece is confronting, is like, so what you told me about, you know, being myself and being true to myself is just a whole bunch of BS then, right? You know, and makes you think like, oh my gosh, like if you really cannot tell yourself the truth, what makes you think people are going to respect you of what you are and who you are to them? So yeah, definitely go ahead and watch this film. It's definitely a must see for Amazon. And the plot is amazing. The cast is amazing. It's really something to watch. You recognize a lot of famous actresses and actors in this film, especially some of them we haven't seen, you know, in a few years. And to see them all come together as a family, it feels literally like just heartwarming and unbelievable. So thank you again so much for tuning in tonight. And again, I really hope like these are some good ideas for you all. Again, we talked about The Crown, we talked about the Peanuts movie, we talked about Jingle Jangle, and now we talked about Uncle Frank. And this is all you can stream and watch as long as you have the subscriptions. As long as you have Netflix basically and Amazon, you should be able to watch all 4 of these shows and movies. So again, thank you for listening to the GSMC television podcast, brought to you by the GSMC podcast network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Television Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.